The Forbidden Zone. The jungle of Corral 9 was not silent. Strange calls echoed from deep within. Shadows moved even when nothing was there. Every tree seemed to watch. And still, the human walked in. His name was Eli Cross. He wore a torn coat, blood on his shoulder, and his boots were muddy from days of walking. His ship had crashed 2 nights ago during a storm. The nearest help signal had died. Now he only had 2 things, his courage and his instinct to survive. He didn't know this was the Forbidden Zone. The sky above was always dark here. The Urpseu. Trees were taller than buildings. Their glowing leaves hummed. Somewhere deeper in the jungle, something massive moved. The ground trembled. Eli stopped. He heard a low growl. He reached for his sidearm but didn't pull it. His breath slowed. Whatever was there, it was watching him. He could feel it in his bones. Up in the trees, Sally, a young alien girl, watched from behind thick vines. Her skin was pale blue, her hair dark and braided. She had been told never to come this far. This was the Guardian's land. All Valari knew this. Even the elders spoke of it with fear. But Sally had followed the human. She had seen his ship fall. She wanted to see the creature that dared step where no alien would. She expected to see him eaten. That would be justice. But she didn't expect what happened next. From the fog ahead, a large figure appeared, 10 feet tall, muscles like metal, eyes glowing like twin suns. The Guardian. It stepped forward, slow. Each foot crushed roots and bones. Its mouth did not open. It simply stared at the human. Eli froze. "Okay," he whispered, hands raised. "Easy, big guy. I'm not here to fight." The Guardian growled, a deep shaking sound. But it didn't attack. Instead, it came closer. Sally gripped a branch, holding her breath. The beast stood right in front of Eli now. It lowered its head and sniffed him. Then, slowly, it bent one knee and bowed. Sally's heart stopped. What? The Guardian, the god beast, was kneeling. To a human? Eli's eyes widened. He took a cautious step forward. He raised a hand and touched the creature's head. Its skin was warm, like a living furnace. "You're not going to eat me, huh?" He smiled softly. "Thanks." From her hiding place, Sally gasped. She almost fell from the branch. This was impossible. The story said the Guardian killed all outsiders. It never showed mercy, never bowed, never obeyed. Yet now the human was petting it like a trained pet. Back at the Valari village, the elders sat in a circle of flame. They felt the change. The ground had whispered. The Guardian had moved. "He has entered the zone," one elder spoke. "And he still breathes." Another said, "It cannot be," the chief said, his voice cold. "No creature survives the Guardian." Sally ran into the fire circle, her breath quick, her eyes wide. "It bowed to him," she cried. "The Guardian, it bowed to the human." Silence. Then a voice spat, "Lies!" But she shook her head, tears in her eyes. "I saw it, with my own eyes." He touched it. It listened. The chief stood, his fists clenched. "Bring him here, in chains. We must know what curse he brings." In the jungle, Eli sat near a strange tree. The Guardian stood nearby, watching the shadows like a guard dog. He looked up at it and whispered, "You're not just a beast, are you? You remember something." Just then, movement. Valari warriors dropped from the trees, weapons aimed at Eli. "Don't move, human," one shouted. Eli stood slowly. "I'm not here to hurt anyone." But they didn't listen. They tied his hands. The Guardian growled, but stopped when Eli gave a small shake of his head. "It's okay," Eli said softly. "Let's see where this takes me." Sally stepped out from behind the warriors. Her face was confused, angry, and scared. "Why did it bow to you?" she asked. Eli looked at her. Calm. "I don't know," he answered. "But I think your people have been wrong about this place, and that creature. For a long, long time. She didn't speak, just stared. As the group began marching back to the village with the human prisoner, the guardian walked behind them in silence, watching, protecting. And Sally, for the first time in her life, wondered, had they misunderstood their guardian? All along. The village of the Villari was quiet when the human was dragged in. The tall trees around the homes whispered with the wind, and the eyes of every villager watched from the shadows. Eli Cross stood calmly, hands tied in front of him while warriors marched him through the stone gates. The guardian followed behind, silent as a shadow, its heavy steps shaking the ground slightly. No one dared stop it. Children ran inside. Elders peered from behind curtains. Everyone feared what was happening. The guardian never left the jungle. It never followed anyone. It had never entered the village in living memory. And now, it followed a human. Eli didn't speak. He looked around, noting the alien structures, the strange glowing vines wrapped around houses, and the wide eyes of frightened people. He saw Sally walking a few steps behind the guardian, her face confused, torn between fear and wonder. They brought Eli before the high platform, where the chieftain stood wrapped in dark ceremonial robes. His eyes were old but sharp like a blade. His voice echoed as he shouted, "Kneel!" Eli did not kneel. He stood tall, bruised, bleeding, tired, but unbroken. "I came here by accident," he said clearly. "I don't want to fight. The EO." Crowd murmured. No one ever spoke during judgment, but the human's voice wasn't angry. It was calm, strong. "You stepped into the sacred lands," the chief growled. "The guardian should have ended you." "Yeah," Eli replied. "But it didn't." The chief pointed toward the massive beast standing behind the warriors. "Then explain this. Why does it follow you? Why does it protect you like a bonded cub?" "I don't know," Eli said honestly. "Maybe it remembers something your people forgot." A deep growl came from the guardian as if it understood. It walked past the warriors and stopped beside Eli. It looked at the crowd. One low rumble made every soldier freeze. The chief's jaw clenched. "He is a deceiver," an elder hissed. "He controls the guardian with forbidden tricks." "Chains cannot hold him," another added. "He must be silenced before the guardian turns on us." Sally stepped forward. "No," she said. "He never gave the guardian orders. It chose to protect him. I watched it. I followed him when he entered the jungle." Everyone gasped. A young girl had entered the forbidden zone. "You disobeyed," the chief shouted. "Yes," Sally said, trembling. "But I saw something different. The guardian didn't attack him. It bowed. It trusted him. Maybe we should listen before we destroy him." The chief stared at her. He wanted to scold her, but her words and the presence of the beast made him hesitate. Eli turned to the guardian. "You're not just a monster, are you?" The guardian looked at him. Then, to everyone's horror, it sat down calmly beside him like a loyal creature. Shock rippled through the crowd. The chief waved his hand. "Lock him in the lower chamber," he ordered. "We will decide his fate tomorrow." Warriors stepped forward, hesitant, nervous with the guardian so near. But Eli nodded. "Fine," he said. "I'll go. Just don't hurt the beast." The guardian growled low but didn't attack. It followed them all the way to the prison building, then waited outside like a silent guard. That night, Sally couldn't sleep. She walked past the houses, past the glowing river, to the prison where Eli was kept. The guardian still sat outside, unmoving. She looked at the creature. "Why him?" she whispered. No answer came, only a soft growl and the movement of golden eyes. Inside the cell, Eli sat on the floor, arms resting on his knees. When Sally entered, he looked up. "Let me guess. You're not supposed to be here." She sat down across from the bars. "I don't understand," she said. "That thing, it killed our hunters before, it tore invaders apart. But now it treats you like family." Eli gave a small smile. Sometimes monsters aren't what they seem. Maybe your people made it angry. Maybe fear kept it trapped. What are you saying? That guardian? It wasn't going to hurt me. I think it remembers the truth. Something from long ago. Sally looked at him. You speak like you've known it forever. No, Eli said. But I've seen things like it before, on other worlds. Machines built to protect, until they were feared instead. Sally felt a strange chill. Could it be? Could the guardian be more than a wild beast? Eli leaned forward. I don't want to take your land. I don't want war. I just want to survive. But if I can help your people understand what that guardian really is, maybe we can fix more than you think. Sally stood slowly. Tomorrow they will vote. Some want you gone, some want you dead. Eli looked through the bars. And you? She hesitated. I want answers. Outside, the guardian stood in the moonlight, waiting, watching, silent. Something ancient had awakened, and it had chosen a human. The sun rose slowly over the Valari village, casting soft red light on the ancient stone paths. But there was no peace in the air. Every villager gathered in silence near the circle of judgment. The fire pit at the center crackled, and the elders took their seats on carved thrones of stone. This was not a normal day. It was a day of decision. Eli Cross, the human, stood in the middle of the circle with his hands bound. Dirt clung to his torn clothes. A faint bruise showed on his cheek, but his eyes were calm. He did not plead. He did not beg. He waited. The guardian sat at the edge of the circle, massive and silent, its golden eyes never leaving Eli. No chains held it. No guards surrounded it, but no one dared approach it either. Its presence alone made the air feel heavier. Sally stood outside the crowd, her heart beating fast. She had spoken to Eli in secret. She had heard his words, and deep inside, something told her he was not lying. He wasn't an invader. He was something else, something the Valari were not ready to understand. The chief stepped forward. His voice was strong and sharp. We begin the trial of the outsider, he said. This human crossed into sacred land. He survived the guardian's wrath, and now, the guardian follows him like a bonded kin. Whispers filled the air. An old elder stood up next, his voice cracked with age. This cannot be natural. The guardian is our god. For thousands of cycles it lived in the jungle, protecting us with silence and fear. Now it kneels for a human? This must be a trick, a trap. Another elder added. The human must be destroyed. It is the only way to break the guardian's spell. Eli finally spoke, his voice steady. I don't control it. I didn't cast any spell. The guardian made its own choice, just like all of you can. The crowd stirred. Some frowned. Some listened. Lies, the chief shouted. Then tell us. Why you? What makes you special? Eli looked around the circle. I don't know why the guardian chose me. But maybe it remembers who it was before you turned it into something to fear. The chief's eyes narrowed. You speak of things you don't understand. I understand fear, Eli replied. You all fear that beast. You worship it like a god, but you treat it like a monster. Maybe it just needed someone to treat it like a friend. Suddenly the guardian let out a deep rumble, not a growl, not anger, a sound like agreement. The villagers gasped. Many backed away. One of the elders dropped his staff in shock. It responded to him. The chief's face was dark. Then, we must test this so-called bond. Bring the flame rod. From the side, 2 warriors stepped forward holding a glowing staff. It shimmered with heat. Touch the guardian with this, the chief ordered Eli. If it lets you live, we'll believe your bond. If it kills you, your lies die with you. Eli glanced at the beast. I don't want to hurt it. Then you refuse? The chief asked. No, Eli said, taking the rod. But if I do this and it doesn't kill me, you listen to what I have to say. The chief paused, then nodded once. Agreed. Eli stepped forward. Slowly. The rod glowed in his hand. The guardian watched him come closer. The whole village held its breath. With calm hands, Eli reached out and pressed the hot end against the guardian's thick skin. The rod sizzled. The guardian growled, but didn't move. Then it bowed its head again. Quiet. Peaceful. Gasps rippled through the villagers. A few even fell to their knees. It accepts him, one whispered. The chief looked shaken, but he kept his voice firm. Fine. He lives. For now. Eli gave back the rod and looked at them. I don't want your worship, I want the truth, that guardian. It was built by my people a long time ago, wasn't it? To protect you. None answered. But deep among the elders, one woman stood. She was oldest among them, blind in one eye. Her voice was soft but powerful. Yes, she said. Long ago. The humans came, they built the guardian. It was not a god, it was a guardian just like its name. The crowd went silent. She continued. We forgot that truth. And so, fear replaced memory. We fed the guardian with sacrifice instead of kindness. The chief's face turned red with shame and rage, but he could not stop the shift in the crowd. People now looked at Eli differently, not as a threat, but as a connection to something forgotten. Sally stepped beside him. He's not the enemy, she said. Maybe he's the key to understanding the guardian's true purpose. The trial was over. The decision was made. Eli would not be executed. He would be watched, yes, but also respected. And as the sun rose higher, casting gold light over the village, the guardian sat proudly beside the human. Its protector had returned. For the first time in generations, the guardian stood inside the Valari village, not as a threat, but as something no one could quite name. Not a god, not a monster, and not yet a friend. It sat beside the human, Eli Cross, like a silent giant carved from dark stone. Its glowing eyes watched the people with calm patience. But the village was not calm. Whispers followed Eli everywhere. He walked. Some eyes watched him with fear, others with curiosity. Children peeked from behind doorways. Mothers pulled them back. Warriors kept their hands close to their weapons. The elders stayed silent. The chief did not speak to him again. Sally walked beside Eli as they were allowed to move through the village freely now, but only during daylight and always with a watcher. Eli didn't complain. He had a feeling the Valari people needed time. Fear was not easy to unlearn. The guardian followed quietly behind them. I don't get it, Sally said, finally breaking the silence. It used to attack everything. Even birds didn't fly near the forbidden zone. But now, it walks behind you like a shadow. Eli looked up at the massive creature. It made a choice, he said softly. It chose peace over fear, loyalty over power. They stopped by the village square. A group of warriors stood there, staring. One stepped forward. He was large, scarred, and proud. Torvik, the chief's son. You, he pointed at Eli. You think you are special because the beast bows to you. Eli didn't answer. Torvik snarled. You bring danger. You twist our beliefs. If you stay, the guardian will forget who it is, a god of death. It was never a god, Eli replied. It's not a slave either. It's something in between. Like all of us, it just wants a purpose. Torvik's face twisted in anger. He pulled a blade from his belt. The warriors behind him tensed. The guardian moved before Eli could react. A blur of motion. It stood between them, roaring so loud. The ground cracked. The air shook with its voice. People screamed, warriors fell back. Torvik froze, eyes wide. But the guardian didn't strike. It lowered its head. Slowly, it turned to face Eli and waited. Eli stepped forward and placed his hand gently on the beast's side. Don't, he whispered. No killing. The guardian huffed, then backed away, standing still again. The message was clear. It would kill for Eli, but it would also obey him. That moment changed everything. Not just for the warriors, not just for Sally, but for the Guardian itself. Later that night in the private chamber of the elders, chaos reigned. Voices rose in fear. It obeyed his command. It stood down on his word. The Guardian is no longer ours, it is his. It will betray us if he does. But the old blind elder, Mara, stood quietly. Her voice was calm when it finally broke the noise. No, it has not betrayed us. It has remembered. The chief glared. Remembered what? That it was created to protect, Mara said. To choose. And it has chosen Eli. That is not weakness. That is awakening. By the fire that evening, Sally and Eli sat together while the Guardian slept nearby like a great boulder. Do you know what this means? She asked him. I don't, Eli replied. But I think it means I'm staying longer than planned. She gave a small laugh. I think you're stuck with us now. He smiled. There are worse places to be. Then she asked, do you think the Guardian remembers? The humans who built it? Eli looked at the stars above. Maybe, or maybe, it just remembers what kindness felt like. Someone giving it a choice, not orders. That's how you tame a beast. Not with fear, but with freedom. She was quiet for a while. Then she said, you didn't tame it. You freed it. He nodded. Maybe both. Just then, the Guardian stirred. It rose, eyes glowing in the dark, and turned its head to the east. What is it? Sally asked. Eli stood slowly. He listened. Far away, too far for her ears, there was a sound. Distant engines, a humming in the sky. Something's coming, he said. The Guardian growled low. Sally stood beside him. Not from the village? No, Eli said. Something else. Something worse. The Guardian stepped forward, its body tense, its eyes narrowed. It was choosing again, and this time, it chose to fight. The jungle was quiet, but not peaceful. A strange hum drifted through the trees, faint but growing stronger with each passing hour. Eli stood at the edge of the village beside the Guardian, listening. His eyes narrowed as he looked toward the eastern sky. Whatever was coming, it was not friendly. Sally joined him, her face tense. It's not the Valari. We don't use machines like that. What are those sounds? Eli didn't answer at first. He closed his eyes and breathed slowly. Ships, big ones, military engines, not from this world. She stared at him. Invaders? Maybe, Eli said. Or maybe scavengers. Either way, they're trouble. The Guardian growled low. Its claws scraped the dirt. It had sensed the danger before anyone else. Its memory ran deeper than most minds could imagine. I need to know what it knows, Eli whispered. What it was before. What happened here. Sally looked at the Guardian, then back at Eli. There's an old place, in the deep jungle. The Forbidden Core. No one goes there, but the Guardian sometimes returns alone. Can you take me? Eli asked. She hesitated, then nodded. Yes, but we'll need to go now, before the elders stop us. They left before dawn. Sally led the way through thick vines and glowing moss. The Guardian followed close behind, silent but watchful. The trees grew taller, older as they moved deeper into the jungle. The air was cooler, the sky darker. After hours of walking, they reached it. A massive stone wall stood before them, covered in symbols and ancient roots. But behind that wall was not just more forest. There was metal beneath it. Old metal. Sally touched a section of the wall. Here. Eli stepped forward. He pulled out a small device from his coat, a signal reader. The screen blinked alive. There's power behind this wall, he said. The Guardian stepped closer. Its hand reached toward the center of the stone. A soft blue light glowed from its palm. The symbols on the wall began to shine. Then slowly, The wall shifted open. Behind it lay a chamber of rusted steel, broken lights, and long-dead control panels. It looked like the remains of a forgotten human base. Eli stepped inside. The walls were lined with screens, now cracked, and chairs covered in dust. But at the center stood something untouched, a tall glowing cylinder filled with flickering lights. The Guardian moved toward it and placed its hand on the panel beside it. The lights blinked. Then a voice echoed softly through the room. Project Watchkeeper. Status: active. Assigned directive: protect native life from external threats. Mission success: 42%. Human personnel: absent. Time since last update: 782 years. Sally gasped. 782 years? Eli's face grew serious. This Guardian. It was part of a human mission. We came here to protect your world. Maybe from other humans. Or worse. But when we left, something went wrong. You forgot what it was. The lights changed again. A recording played. A hologram of a human woman appeared, wearing a uniform, her face kind but tired. If you're hearing this, the hologram said, we're gone. The Valari were peaceful, beautiful, but not ready for war. We left the Guardian to protect them. He's not a god. He's not a weapon. He's a friend. A keeper. The hologram faded. Sally's eyes filled with tears. All this time, we worshipped him like a god. We feared him. But he was made to help us. Eli looked at the Guardian. That's why it bowed. Not because I'm special, but because I reminded of what it used to serve. A human, a guide, not a master. Suddenly, the signal reader in Eli's hand beeped rapidly. The incoming threat was close now. 10 kilometers, maybe less. He turned to Sally. We have to get back. Tell your people the truth, and prepare them. Sally nodded, but the Guardian stayed still. It reached out to the panel one more time, and a new light rose from the floor. Metal plates, armor parts, glowing lines. It stepped into the circle of light, and slowly its form changed. Pieces of armor locked into place across its body. Its shoulders flared with energy. Its eyes glowed brighter. Its claws sharpened. It looked taller, stronger, reborn. It has fully awakened, Eli whispered. The Guardian turned to him. There was no fear in its face, only calm purpose. It had remembered everything, what it was, why it was made, and now it was ready to fight again. Together, they turned toward the jungle, path toward the village, toward the storm that was coming. This time, Eli would not be alone, and neither would the Valari. Smoke curled in the distant sky like a warning written in fire. The sounds that once whispered through the jungle were now drowned by something darker. Engines. Roaring, rumbling, growing closer with every hour. The Valari villagers stood frozen, their eyes wide as black dots appeared in the sky above the trees. Warships. Strange and sharp, not built for peace or landing, but for fire and death. Inside the village square, fear was thick. Children clung to mothers. Warriors gathered their spears, though many knew they were useless against Starsteel. The elders shouted orders. The chief paced, his hands shaking, his voice no longer steady. Eli and Sally returned just before the first shadow passed over the treetops. They came with dust on their clothes, and something new in their eyes. Knowledge. The Guardian followed, them, now wearing its full armor, glowing lines across its body like lightning trapped in steel. They're not raiders, Eli said to the council. They're hunters. They destroy and take what they want. They've been following the old signal your Guardian still gave off, thinking it's protecting something valuable. The chief's voice was low. What do they want? Everything, Eli said. They don't leave survivors. Murmurs turned to panic. Then we run, a warrior shouted. No, Sally said. We stand. For once we don't hide behind old myths. We fight with truth. And with him. She pointed at the Guardian. The creature looked over the villagers, then let out a long, echoing growl that made even the animals go silent. It stepped forward and dropped to one knee, not in submission but to offer itself. Eli turned to the crowd. This thing you feared for generations was never your enemy. It was waiting, watching. You called it a god, but it was just a protector. Now it wants to protect again, but it needs you to stand with it. The villagers looked at each other. They were farmers, hunters, builders, not soldiers. But when they saw the guardian kneeling before a human, offering its strength, something changed. Fear gave way to fire. A quiet resolve spread like a spark catching dry leaves. The chief stepped forward at last. His voice cracked, but he spoke. Then let it be known. Today, the Valari do not run. The hours that followed were a blur of motion. Eli coordinated defenses, showing the warriors how to lay traps using broken tech from the Guardian's chamber. He used scrap metal to create shock lines, weak but enough to stun intruders. The jungle itself became a maze of wires, spikes, and hidden holes. The Guardian marked the forest with pulses of light, warning Eli where the invaders would likely land. It remembered battle. It remembered loss. It would not allow it again. Sally trained with the spear, not just as a girl, but as a future leader. Her hands bled, her breath burned, but she didn't stop. That night, as the village prepared for war, the sky glowed with the fire of descending ships. The sound shook the earth, and then they came. Black-armored figures stormed the forest, weapons humming, visors glowing. Their steps were machine-perfect, their eyes empty. They cut through trees, tore apart defenses, and moved like ghosts. Until the Guardian stepped into their path. With a roar that split the jungle, it slammed its fists into the ground. The nearest raider flew into a tree, armor crushed like paper. Another fired a beam. Useless. The Guardian's armor absorbed it like dust. Eli fought beside it, using cover, striking weak points, stealing dropped weapons and tossing them to Valari warriors. Sally led a charge from the river path, her voice loud, strong, almost a song. Her people followed her, no longer frozen in fear but alive with something greater. Hope. They struck fast, used the jungle's darkness. Once they feared the trees, now they moved like shadows themselves. Explosions lit the night, fires tore through vines. Bodies fell, but still, the invaders pushed forward, until the Guardian reached the leader. A towering raider with a red mask raised his weapon at Eli. "You don't belong here," he said coldly. "I do now," Eli replied. The Guardian lunged. The final battle was not long, but it was loud, brutal, and unforgettable. When the sun rose again, the fires still smoked, but the village stood. The Valari had not fallen. They had fought, and they had won. At the center of it all stood Eli. Blood on his face, his shirt torn, and beside him, the Guardian, now still resting like a great stone. Its chest smoked gently, but it still breathed. Sally walked to them, her eyes full of something new, not just respect, but pride. "You really did tame our Guardian," she whispered. Eli looked at the resting giant. "No," he said. "It chose me. And now, I choose you." The sun hung low in the sky, casting golden light over the wounded jungle. Smoke rose in slow curls from shattered trees and burned metal. The battle was over, but the scars would remain for years. The Valari village had survived. Not because of their weapons, not because of numbers, but because of one human, and the Guardian who chose to stand with him. Eli Cross sat on a rock near the edge of the battlefield, his arm wrapped in bandages, his face smeared with dirt and blood. But his eyes were sharp, alert. He watched the villagers move like ghosts through the remains, gathering their wounded, burying their dead, helping each other with quiet hands. The Guardian lay nearby, its body scarred, armor cracked in places. Its glowing lines flickered like weak lightning, but it breathed. Its eyes blinked slowly. It had not fallen. Sally walked up to Eli, carrying a water pouch. She handed it to him, then sat down beside him. Her face was tired, her braid loose, and there was a small cut above her eye, but she smiled. "We lived," she said. Eli took a sip of water and nodded. "Barely. I thought the Guardian would die when that last ship exploded," she whispered. "It didn't even hesitate. It threw itself in the way." "That's what it was made for," Eli said. "Not to rule, not to kill, but to protect. And this time, it didn't do it because of programming. It did it because it wanted to." Sally glanced at the Guardian. "Then you really did tame it." Eli shook his head slowly. "I didn't tame it. I earned its trust. That's different." There was silence between them for a while, broken only by the crackle of dying fires and the rustle of wind through broken leaves. Then Sally asked, "Will it heal?" Eli stood and walked over to the Guardian. He placed a hand gently on its side. The giant stirred, letting out a slow rumble. One glowing eye opened. "I think so," Eli said. "But it needs rest. And it needs peace." From the village, the chief approached. Behind him, elders and warriors followed, carrying pieces of broken armor, weapons from the invaders, and one tall banner with the Valari symbol scorched but still flying. The chief stood in front of Eli. His voice was rough. "We owe you more than we can say." "You don't owe me anything," Eli replied. "You protected your home. I just helped." "You brought the Guardian back to us," the chief said. "You showed us it was never a god and never a monster." Eli looked back at the giant machine. "It was always a Guardian. You just needed to remember." The chief lowered his head in respect. "What will you do now?" Eli looked toward the jungle, then up at the sky. "I don't know. My ship's gone. I don't have a way off this world." "You could stay," Sally said quietly. Eli turned to her. She met his eyes without fear. "You taught us more than just how to fight," she said. "You helped us find truth. We were afraid of change. But not anymore." He smiled softly. "I was just passing through, you know." "Then maybe you were meant to pass through here," she replied. Behind them, the Guardian groaned and began to rise. Its armor plates shifted, metal groaning as it stood tall once more. The villagers stepped back in awe, but not in fear. This time, they didn't tremble. The Guardian looked around at the people, then down at Eli. It knelt before him. Eli stepped forward, placed his hand on its chest. "I'm not your commander," he whispered. "I'm just your friend." The Guardian let out a soft hum, almost like a sigh. Then, with a surprising movement, it extended one hand toward the Valari chief, and the other toward Sally. Sally gasped. The message was clear. Unity. Eli stepped back as the chief slowly approached and placed his hand on the Guardian's side. Sally did the same. And for the first time in centuries, the Guardian stood between Valari and human, not as a barrier, but as a bridge. Days passed. The village began to rebuild. With Eli's help, they dug deeper roots. They found the ruins of the old human outpost and used its technology to bring power to their homes. The children laughed again. The jungle felt less haunted, and the Guardian watched it all. It stood near the village now, like a sleeping mountain. Sometimes it walked through the trees. Sometimes it sat by the fire, listening to stories told by elders and children alike. Eli stayed. He fixed things. He taught. He learned. He grew. One evening, as the stars blinked above and cool wind drifted through the trees, Sally sat beside him. "Do you miss your world?" she asked. "Sometimes," he said. "But here, I found something I never had out there." "What?" He looked at the Guardian, then at her. "A reason to stay." She smiled, and high above them, far beyond the jungle, the sky shimmered. Peaceful for now, but if danger ever returned, they knew the Guardian would rise again. And this time it would not fight alone.